Okay, so you want the full download on this Harris-Trump debate, right?
Everyone's talking about it.
Exactly. And we're going deeper than just those headlines, you know?
Absolutely.
We've got articles stacked up here, Reuters, CNN, even The Guardian zeroed in on, well, that look Harris gave a few times.
Oh, yeah. That was hard to miss.
And this was high stakes to begin with. It's Harris's first time on a presidential debate stage, right? With Biden out of the picture entirely now, this changes the whole game.
Huge implications, no doubt. And speaking of changing the game, Trump immediately says no to any more debates after this one. One and done, according to Reuters.
Whoa, really? That was my first thought, too. Like, why? Makes you wonder what his strategy is there after just one face-off.
It's definitely interesting. And I think it highlights something really important about this debate.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just talking policy details here.
Right. It was bigger than that.
This is about public perception, about how each candidate comes across on that stage, how they own that space.
And Trump he seems to live for those moments, right?
You could say that.
Yeah.
But for Harris, this was her debut in this arena. The pressure was on.
No kidding.
And she definitely didn't just show up. She came ready to spar. I noticed several articles, The Guardian especially, really broke down her expressions.
I saw that. All those little scoffs, those tight smiles, even how she was blinking slowly at certain points.
Exactly. Like she was conveying a whole other message through her face the whole time. It was like a masterclass in nonverbal communication. The question is, was it effective? Did it resonate with voters the way she intended, or could it backfire?
Interesting. So it matters how you debate, not just what you say, especially these days.
It's fascinating how much weight we give to those nonverbal cues, especially in our hypervisual age. Think about Biden's debate with Trump.
Yeah, rough to watch at times.
Right. He often got criticized for seeming disengaged, even bored, when Trump was going on his tangents. Now, Harris, whether intentionally or not, she used every facial expression, every gesture to engage with Trump, even when she wasn't speaking.
It's true. I noticed that. Like, she was almost visually fact-checking him in real time with that I'm watching you kind of look.
Exactly. And that raises so many questions about how that landed with different demographics. Did younger voters see it as quick wit, while older generations found it disrespectful? We don't know for sure, but it's something to consider.
Definitely adds another layer to it.
And we can't forget the elephant in the room, so to speak. She's a woman of color going up against a candidate who, well, let's just say Trump hasn't exactly been known for his sensitive approach, especially when it comes to race and gender.
Understatement of the year.
Exactly. So every expression, every reaction from her is going to be scrutinized through that lens as well. Did it come across as assertive or aggressive, confident or calculated? These are the questions that people are asking.
And with the stakes this high, those interpretations could make all the difference. Okay, so moving from how things were said to some of the actual content of this debate that's got everyone buzzing. Like when Trump brought up that whole thing about immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, eating people's pets.
I saw that.
CNN mentioned it, and honestly, at first I thought it had to be satire. It just sounded so out there.
It does, doesn't it? And it speaks to a larger pattern with Trump, wouldn't you say? It's a classic tactic of his to make these outlandish claims that even if they're completely unfounded, they tap into pre-existing anxieties and fears.
He's been doing that for years.
Right. In this case, with the immigrant story, it plays into this narrative he's been pushing forever. Immigrants as a threat to the American way of life. Whether it's true or not is almost beside the point. It's about stirring up emotions, solidifying his base.
Fear as a campaign strategy, it's a lot. So the question becomes, in 2024, in this political climate, does that still work beyond his base? Does it alienate more people than it attracts at this point?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just the immigration issue either. CNN also called out Trump's repeated and, let's be clear, inaccurate assertions about Democrats and abortion.
Oh, right, I forgot about that part. He wouldn't let that go.
He keeps pushing this idea that Democrats are all for late-term abortions, even post-birth, which is just patently false. But again, it's about painting the other side as extreme, out of touch with mainstream values. But is it effective, even with his own base, to keep repeating things that are demonstrably untrue?
You'd think at some point it'd backfire, but who knows these days?
Right. It almost assumes a certain level of acceptance, shall we say, from his audience. Like they'll just take his word for it no matter what.
Right.
But how much of that is still true in 2024?
Good question. Did it work this time? Did that strategy backfire in this debate, or did it actually hit its mark with his target audience?
We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out.
So much to unpack there. But CNN also highlighted that moment where Harris directly confronted Trump about his history of, shall we say, questionable behavior towards minorities over the years.
Oh, yeah. That was powerful.
She wasn't just defending herself, which would have been powerful enough. She went on the offensive, bringing up his past comments, even some about her own race and ethnicity, directly calling him out.
Bold move. And one we haven't really seen before on this kind of stage, at least not in this way. Instead of trying to rise above it or brush it off, she met it head on. And it raises a lot of questions, right? Did it resonate with voters who feel like they've been targeted by that same kind of rhetoric?
Because it's not just about her, it's about all the people who have had similar experiences.
Exactly. Did it make decided voters uncomfortable, or maybe solidify Trump's support among those who actually agree with his views?
Ah, right, because how that landed with people probably depends entirely on their existing opinions about both of them. It becomes about more than the issue itself. It's about how they each chose to handle it in that moment.
Precisely. And we'll get into the fallout from all that in just a bit. So moving on from those really charged moments during the debate, what happened right after? What was the immediate reaction like?
Everyone wanted to know who won.
Always the big question after these things.
Well, CNN did their flash poll, and it turns out the majority of viewers felt like Harris won that debate.
Interesting.
And Reuters, they cited some polling data from Ipsos, showed Harris pulling ahead of Trump by 5 points.
5 points. That's significant. But the question is, are these early reactions, are they actually a reliable way to figure out what's going to happen in the election?
That's the thing with polls, isn't it? They're a snapshot in time. And often I feel like they're influenced by whatever just happened, you know?
Recency bias. It's hard to escape sometimes.
Totally. Everyone wants to dissect the latest event, declare a clear winner and loser. But we're weeks away from the actual election. So much can change.
A lifetime in politics. Remember back in the 2016 when everyone and their mother was so sure Clinton had it in the bag?
Oh, tell me about it. Talk about a wild ride.
And here we are again watching those early numbers like they're going to tell us the whole story.
So if it's not all about those immediate reactions, how do we make sense of a debate like this?
Well, it's important to remember this isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. And yeah, this debate definitely shook things up. But one debate doesn't a presidency make.
True.
It can shift the narrative, for sure. Maybe energize a candidate's base, get people fired up. But at the end of the day, it's just one piece of a very complex puzzle.
Okay, that makes sense. But speaking of things that can really shift the narrative, can we talk about Taylor Swift's endorsement?
Oh, you went there.
I mean, the timing of it all. Right after the debate, she comes out swinging for Harris. Talk about a power move.
Right. Even CNN called it out as more than just your average celebrity endorsement. This was strategic. And I think it speaks to this larger trend we've been seeing, celebrities using their platforms to really weigh in on political issues. But what's so interesting here is that timing, like you said, and who she's targeting with that message. Swiss fan base, let's be real, it's massive.
Massive is an understatement.
And a huge chunk of that fan base, it's young women. Which, if you think about it, is a demographic that's been really vocal about their opposition to Trump. And anyone who shares his, shall we say, particular brand of politics.
Yeah, they're not mincing words, that's for sure.
And if you connect that to what we were just talking about, you know, Harris directly calling out Trump's behavior, it makes you wonder if this is all part of a larger strategy.
To try and get those voters, those women especially, who maybe felt alienated by Trump to really show up this time.
Exactly. It's like Taylor Swift as a secret weapon to mobilize the vote.
I kind of love it. And it's smart, right? She lends this air of, I don't know, coolness to Harris's campaign, which, let's face it, could really appeal to those younger voters.
It makes politics feel a little less stuffy, you know?
Really?
A little more accessible, more relatable. And honestly, in a world where everyone's overwhelmed with political news and opinions all the time, a little star power can go a long way.
For sure. It gets people talking, maybe even changes some minds along the way. But the million-dollar question is, does it actually translate into votes? Do celebrity endorsements actually hold that much weight in the end?
Right. That's the debate that's been raging forever. Does it actually influence how people vote, or is it just entertainment?
I go back and forth on that myself, honestly.
On the one hand, you could say it's just entertainment. People can separate their love for a musician or an actor from their political beliefs.
And a lot of people do, for sure.
But then again, we see it all the time, right? Celebrities influence trends, what people buy, even entire social movements.
True. And their reach is just so huge these days. It's hard to ignore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially in this election, where you have these two very different candidates, these very different approaches. It's not just about policy positions anymore.
It's a whole package.
Exactly. It's image, relatability, tapping into what's going on in culture at this moment in time. And in that sense, having someone like Taylor Swift in your corner could be huge.
So where do we even go from here? We've broken down this debate, blow by blow, the strategies, the surprises, even Taylor Swift jumping in the ring. What's the big picture? What should we be watching for as this whole thing unfolds?
Well, I think it's safe to say this first debate, it was a defining moment, no doubt.
Definitely shook things up.
But we got to remember, it's just the first act. You know, this whole election, it's a show, and we're just getting started.
We've got weeks to go still, and with how unpredictable things are these days, politically speaking,
Right.
who even knows what could happen?
Right. Remember back in 2016, all the polls, the predictions, they were pointing in one direction.
Yeah.
And well.
Let's just say reality had other plans. So much for those October surprises. More like expect the unexpected every single month.
Exactly. So how do we make sense of any of it, right? As voters, as people just trying to stay informed in all this chaos, what do we focus on?
Okay, yeah, that's the million-dollar question because it's a lot. What's your advice? What should we be paying attention to?
I'd say don't just read the headlines. Look for the nuances.
Ooh, I like that. Dig a little deeper.
Right. How are the candidates framing things now after this debate?
Like, what are they saying now that they've sized each other up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Will Harris try to solidify her policy positions even more? Or is she going to pivot based on how things went?
And what about Trump? Does he double down on those, well, some might say outlandish claims? Or will we see him try to tone it down, maybe seem a little more moderate, try to win back some of those undecided voters?
It's a high-stakes chess game,
Yeah.
and we're all watching to see who makes the next move.
Will we get more celebrity endorsements? Or will things shift back to actual policy talk, those town halls where people can grill the candidates directly?
All good questions.
Yeah.
And here's another one to ponder. What about those external factors, the wild cards that could come into play that nobody's even thinking about yet?
The things that make you go, well, I did not see that coming.
Exactly. We talked about Taylor Swift, right? But what about the economy? What if something major happens there?
Yeah.
Or some kind of international situation blows up, even something totally out of left field that nobody sees coming? Could there be a game changer lurking out there that just completely changes the course of this election?
It's like, just when you think you've got a handle on things, boom, the whole game changes.
That's politics for you.
Yeah.
Never a dull moment.
Well, that's for sure. I feel like I need to take a deep breath after all that. But seriously, this is why we do this deep dive, right? To really break it all down, go beyond the surface. So, to everyone listening, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, keep asking those tough questions.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This election is far from over, and we'll be here every step of the way, diving deep with you into all the twists and turns, analyzing everything, because in this day and age, knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. The more informed we are, the better choices we can make.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, everyone, that's it for our deep dive on this wild and crazy first debate. We'll be back soon with more analysis as this election unfolds. Until then, stay engaged, stay informed, and let's keep those conversations going.